his face is stone cold evil, and I don't think he wanted people to see that.
Years after Dylan Rounds' murder, his killer still can't even look at the 19-year-old's family.
I will ask Mr. Brenner, if you would, I would like you to stand, and I would like you to face them, if you would do that.
After years of searching for Dylan, now convicted killer James Brenner confessed to the crime, leading investigators straight to Dylan's body. After reaching a plea deal this spring, Brenner was finally sentenced this week.
Based on the 3 second-degree felonies, it will be the order of the court to serve 1 to 15 years on each one of those.
We're now hearing from Dylan's family and their reaction to Brenner's sentencing.
Well, like, Brenner should get a pat on the back because he led us to Dylan's body. He should not get a pat on the back for that. He's the one who put it there.
The case has a long, winding history, one that we've followed on Law&Crime for years. But it all started on May 28, 2022, when 19-year-old Dylan Rounds was last seen. Dylan's main passion in life was farming, and that's just what he was doing before he disappeared. He bought a farm in Lucin, Utah, near the borders of Idaho and Nevada, and at the time, James Brenner was squatting on this property. Just this week, Brenner was sentenced in Dylan's murder, and in the days following the sentencing, I sat down with Dylan's mom, Candace Cooley. Did this sentencing bring you or your family any sort of closure?
You know, we already knew what was going to happen. We already knew months ago that this is exactly what it was going to be. I think what it did is it took the giant elephant out of the room, that we don't have to sit there and anticipate, man, we got to go to court next week. We got to go to court in 2 days. We got to go face him again. I think it takes a lot off your shoulders. As far as closure, there's never closure, but this is a closed chapter now, and now we move on to the next chapter. And that's with helping others.
I want to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this story of Dylan Rounds. I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the content Law&Crime covers that the world isn't always the safest place. So when you're hurt, it can be scary and you don't really know where to turn. Well, Morgan & Morgan is the largest injury law firm in America. Morgan & Morgan has completely modernized the personal injury claim process. You can submit a claim and find out if you have a case, all from your phone. You can start a claim in 8 clicks or less without having to leave your couch at forthepeople.com/LCnews. Cooley says Brenner's relationship with Dylan and their family actually had a long history. This is something prosecutors pointed out too.
James Brenner, the man who took Dylan's life, was no stranger to his family. Dylan gave him work in the middle of nowhere. He paid him to work on his farm. Dylan's family knew James Brenner. He had done farming work in Idaho and stayed in a camp trailer on their property. They had meals together. They were not strangers. Despite that relationship, not only did he commit the senseless crime of taking Dylan away from them, he intentionally prolonged their torment for 2 years by making them leave the property where Dylan was last seen, by hiding evidence, by trying to confuse the investigation by returning evidence. And ultimately, he only came forward with the truth so that he could cut a deal and reduce his sentence.
The last person to hear from Dylan back in 2021 was his grandmother. He called her to chat about his farming plans for the day, but after that, no more calls came. The investigation began with the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office. They named James Brenner a suspect in July 2022, but he wasn't charged until spring of 2023. According to a probable cause affidavit, investigators recovered a video from Rounds' phone that led to Brenner's arrest. Court documents read in part, quote, "The video showed the defendant with blood stains on his arms and shirt as he was cleaning a gun." Investigators tested the shirt Brenner was wearing in that video and found Dylan's DNA on it. A plea deal was in the works for more than a year after that, with Brenner finally pleading guilty back in May of this year.
He says to count 1 murder, a second-degree felony to that charge. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As part of the plea, Brenner's charge of aggravated murder, a first-degree felony, was reduced to murder, a second-degree felony. An additional charge of desecration of human remains, a third-degree felony, was dismissed. As another part of the plea, Brenner finally led investigators to Dylan's remains. During the plea hearing back in May, prosecutors outlined the final moments of Dylan's life.
19-year-old Dylan Rounds was reported as a missing person on May 31st, 2022. Sheriff's deputies, along with search and rescue crews, made efforts to locate Dylan, but were unsuccessful. During the search, deputies discovered a pair of boots belonging to Dylan nearby. One boot had a blood stain that DNA analysis confirmed to be Dylan's blood. Dylan's phone records were also obtained, which showed movements on the day of his disappearance on a remote property in Lucin, where defendant was living. Phone data showed that the last signal from Dylan's phone was at the Lucin pond, and a search of the pond led to the discovery of the phone. A digital forensic download of the phone was conducted and led to the discovery of a time-lapse video taken at the time of the victim's disappearance, showing defendant with blood stains on his arms and shirt as he is cleaning a gun. That was taken on the day when Dylan went missing. Dylan's remains were eventually recovered pursuant to the plea agreement in this case in the Lucin area, and forensic analysis revealed bullet holes to Dylan's skull, which was the result of defendant shooting him in the head. And then on case ending.
And while Brenner admitted to the murder by pleading guilty, prosecutors say he showed no remorse.
I was curious to see what Mr. Brenner's reactions and his cooperation with the pre-sentence report, his demeanor in the courtroom today, hoping and expecting to see some remorse. And it was so frustrating and so sad to see that it is just totally absent from this pre-sentence report.
And where Brenner lacked remorse, prosecutors say he instead placed blame.
We read that he rationalized the offense, placing blame on the victim, does not appear to take responsibility for his actions. They note that he poses a significant public safety threat as evidenced by his pattern of antisocial behavior. Certainly that's true. They note a criminal history that spans 4 decades. And over those 4 decades, we have a man who's engaged in numerous violent offenses over the years, leaving a wake of victims behind him. Truly, just sad, frustrating. I can't think of another adjective. But as if that's not bad enough, we get to the pro-criminal attitude aspect of it. It says, Mr. Brenner placed considerable blame for his current situation on the victim, taking no accountability for his actions, and they even go on to quote him, saying, he shows no remorse or accountability for his behavior, stating, quote, I lost everything I own except land and a checking account. I'm not paying because a bastard broke into my place. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Brenner's defense spoke several times throughout the hearing, but only briefly.
Your Honor, there's not a lot to say from the defense on this. We reached a resolution with the state that involved Rule 11I conference with the court, wherein the client pleaded guilty as charged, as charged in the amended information to a second-degree felony on the murder case, carrying a potential penalty of 1 to 15 years, and then as well as pleading guilty in the other case with 2 counts of the possession of a firearm, also each carrying 1 to 15 years of second-degree felonies. It was something that my client had asked me about from almost the first day that I was brought into this case. I recognized there were other attorneys that preceded me in this matter, but one of the issues that was continually brought up in my client was he did intend and wanted to bring Dylan home, and he did do his end of that bargain, and those remains were recovered. With that said, my client has asked me not to engage with the narrative of what happened in this case, and has himself declined to make any statements to the court or to the family. So with that, I'll submit to the court. Please follow the recommendation of Rule 11 agreement.
That was another aspect in this hearing that stood out to me. So the defense talked about bringing Dylan home, which is one of the reasons you said you wanted to do the plea deal at all. But it was interesting to me that Brenner's defense attorney said he kept up his end of the bargain. That really jumped out to me. What do you think?
Well, Brenner should get a pat on the back because he led us to Dylan's body. He should not get a pat on the back for that. He's the one who put it there. And that I'm with you. That jumped out. You want us to give him credit because he took us to Dylan's body? No, he murdered Dylan. He doesn't get credit. He doesn't get a kudos. He doesn't get a good job or an attaboy because you took us to the person you murdered. I could not even believe that defense attorney said that. It blew my mind. Are you kidding me?
Well, Brenner declined to make any statement at the sentencing hearing. Dylan's father, Justin Rounds, spoke.
I just want you to know what you took away. Not just from me, or his mom, or his brother, and sister. You took away someone who was
willing to be active in the society and contribute to society. As far as I can tell, in your whole entire life, you've never contributed to society once. Dylan helped you out so many times, whether it be hauling sugar beets or potatoes or whatever, and this is how you repay him. I just basically hope that you, for the rest of your life, can think about this. And if a 3 to 30 year comes about and you get out, it'd probably be the worst thing that ever happened to you, Jim. And in that time, man, this is hard. I just hope the rest of your life, you remember what you did and what you did, and I hope sometime you feel some remorse. You don't have the balls enough to look at anybody in the eye or even look at anybody. Turn around and look at the people who you've affected.
Cooley didn't speak, but explained why she made that decision.
Just because I did not want to acknowledge James Brenner. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of hearing what it's done to us. I'm sure, now that everybody can see the whole hearing, the look on his face, he's just an evil person. So it would have no effect on him. That's why I asked Jazz with Missing in America Network to make a statement on the family in my behalf, because she's been there since the beginning. And she did an amazing job. She got out everything I wanted to be said, but I'm very glad that Justin chose to speak. I think it's a little different when it comes from a mom. That's just how moms are. I think it would have appeased them, and I didn't want to do that. And that's why I chose not to.
In lieu of Cooley speaking, the founder of the Missing America Network read a letter to the court.
Dylan was no ordinary young man. He was a dreamer, a builder, a visionary. At an age when many are still discovering their path, Dylan had already charted his. He was transforming a piece of Utah desert into a thriving farm. Dylan saw potential where others saw barren land, and he nurtured dreams of creating a verdant sanctuary in one of the harshest environments. The brightness of Dylan's dreams was brutally extinguished. In the days following his disappearance, his family discovered his boots behind a dirt pile. A chilling sign that something was terribly amiss. Despite that critical clue, their pleas for immediate action were met with dismissive and heartbreaking response. Law enforcement not only failed to act with urgency the situation demanded, but they also compounded the family's suffering by asking them to leave the property where Dylan was last seen. They were told their presence was irritating James Brenner.
As multiple people spoke fondly of Dylan's life, they also mentioned the callousness of Brenner's actions, saying he pushed Dylan's family off the property and spoke with them as if he had nothing to do with their son's murder. After discussing all this, one prosecutor made a curious request.
I would ask that Mr. Brenner have to look back at the galley and look at who is here to support Dylan today. I know they will be respectful, but he needs to be faced with what devastation he has caused. And I would just ask that he be required to look back and view those who are here in support of Dylan today.
Brenner's attorney pushed back on this, saying making Brenner look at the gallery would be like the modern-day equivalent of the stocks.
I would ask the court not to close the request by Ms. Still, as it would be improper, and would also, I believe, amount to some kind of an extrajudicial punishment that the statutes and laws don't allow. It would just be the modern-day equivalent of putting somebody in stocks. Not appropriate, not for the court.
But Judge Brandon Maynard disagreed with the defense and asked Brenner to face Dylan's family.
I will ask Mr. Brenner, if you would, I would like you to stand and I would like you to face them, if you would do that.
By them, Your Honor, I'd like to know who you mean.
Yes, the gallery.
Your Honor, is that an order or is that a request?
It's a request. I'm asking if Mr. Brenner will do that.
Your Honor, my client would respectfully decline.
something that really stood out to me in this hearing is that he was asked to turn around and look at the gallery, and he declined to do that. What do you make of that?
I don't think he wanted everybody to see the stone cold look on his face. I have people ask me, well, maybe it's because he feels guilty or he's ashamed. No, you can see all of side profile shots, and his face is stone cold evil. And I don't think he wanted people to see that. I think he still wants to play the victim. And even as the judge said, he continuously blames Dylan for this and wants to play the victim. And that is not the case.
Yeah, prosecutors brought that up a lot. They even mentioned, here's one of their quotes, that Brenner rationalized the events and placed blame on the victim, placed blame on Dylan. Do you believe that's accurate, how Brenner acted?
Yeah, absolutely. And there were some statements that Brenner made to the prosecutors and to our FBI agent that will never go public, that he 100% is trying to blame this on Dylan. And I mean, let's be honest, you've got 2 gunshot wounds to the head. How is that Dylan's fault? How is that self-defense? You shoot somebody in the head twice with 2 different guns, mind you, not just one, it was 2 different calibers. How is that self-defense? That is, it's execution. That's what he did. He executed Dylan. There's no claim he can ever make that can justify what he did.
And so many people who loved him are here today, and they have fought for justice for him. It is, I appreciate the word that the state used, disturbing. It's disgusting and it's horrific to really witness and experience the lack of remorse. It's really quite evil, and Mr. Brenner has demonstrated that he's unredeemable. And I know that's as harsh, as we can say, but he's clearly made no effort to bring comfort to this family and to take responsibility. To this day, he blames this young man for what he did.
How does it make you feel that throughout all of this, the pre-sentencing, what you said, the discussions ahead of time before the plea, all of that throughout all of this, Brenner has said, it was Dylan's fault. I'm not taking accountability for this. How does that make you and Dylan's family feel?
Looking back through his past and his criminal history that's crisscrossed the country since the 80s, it's not as shocking as it would be if this was his first offense. Like, this is what he's always played, is it's not me, I'm the victim. So knowing that history now, it's not as shocking as it would be, but I do sit there and I think, how in your mind can you even try to justify this? Like, I understand your mind doesn't function properly and you're somewhat, not stable, but still, how do you even wake up in the morning and think, nope, it was Dylan's fault?
Judge Maynard said Brenner's lack of remorse and refusal to address Dylan's family echoed his conduct over the past few years.
The family was looking for Dylan, and you would come around, you would smile and talk with them, knowing full well what had happened, knowing full well what you had done, knowing full well where his body lay, and acted as if nothing happened. My request for you to turn and look at the gallery is similar to something like that. A simple decency.
Judge Maynard told Dylan's family his hands were tied because of the plea deal, meaning he couldn't give Brenner a longer sentence than 1 to 15 years on each count.
The 3 words that I heard through the letters came through with what was described here: builder, dreamer, visionary. I don't believe you are those in any respect, Mr. Brenner. That's unfortunate. I wish I could do something more. I understand when this plea was offered and was taken, it was with the consent of the family in an effort to bring closure. So there is nothing more that I can do other than what has been agreed upon. Based on the 3 second-degree felonies, it will be the order of the court to serve 1 to 15 years on each one of those. Those are run consecutive. I will give you credit for the time you've served only on those two cases, 171 and 110, no other cases.
How do you feel about the sentence? I know that was part of the deal, but what do you make of it?
So I feel a lot better about it now than I did. You know, the 3 to 30 is definitely not justice. The 1 to 15 for Dylan is absolutely not justice. But to hear the judge say that he has already put his recommendation into the parole board that they keep him as long as they legally can, he basically just got sentenced to 30 years without that being the sentence. The judge, he holds a lot of weight. That is a bold statement, and for him to say, "I wish I could give you more." Um, all the letters we wrote into the parole board already, yes, those are going to be taken into consideration. But this is a judge's recommendation. Like, I would give this guy life if I could, but I can't. So here, Utah State Parole Board, you uphold this for me since I was unable to do it. So hearing him say those words was a huge relief. He's never going to get out. He will never get out. Not with a judge's recommendation like that.
As Cooley mentioned, Judge Maynard left Brenner with little hope at an early release.
I'm going to recommend to the parole board that they keep you as long as they legally can. And that's my recommendation to the parole board. I think that's the only leeway I have in this sentencing to offer the family. And with that, that would be the sentence.
Yeah, and that's all he could do. I mean, that's all the judge could do. But absolutely, I'll share part of my statement with you that I did that to the parole board, and I ended it, and I didn't go into a whole huge lot of what it's taken away from me, but what it could take away from others if he was released. And I told the parole board, think about it. If you release him, he's going to be injected into your community where your kids reside, where your wife resides, where your loved ones, husband, everybody resides. He's going to have nothing. He's going to have no one. He's going to result back to violence like he always knows. And I left my statement as, when is it going to be one of your loved ones with 2 bullet holes to the head if you let him out? And that is where I left my statement, because that is true. His whole history is violent. He does not need to get out. And unfortunately, in this case with the plea deal, we went to where we had to go. We knew we would win in trial. There was no doubt in our minds we're going to win in trial. There's some questionable things that I was worried about, but that doesn't bring Dylan back. If we went to trial and he was found guilty, there's no incentive for him to say this is where Dylan is. And that's ultimately why we took the plea. We knew we could still get him thrown in for life, but with the plea, he's still going to be in for life, and we get Dylan back. So it's a win-win for us.
Moving forward, Cooley says there are plans to honor Dylan with a celebration of life later this summer.
Yeah, we're going to do a celebration of life. On Dylan's birthday this year, on August 1st, we're actually doing a virtual memorial. I've been sending out sunflower tea light candles. People can go on to his website and get them. And then as far as a celebration of life, we're going to keep that pretty quiet. It's going to be security. There's been so much craziness in Dylan's case and so many crazy people, and they're still at us every day. We'll do the virtual memorial for us and fell in love with Dylan. But as far as the true celebration of life, we're going to keep that pretty tight knit so we don't have any craziness in it.
Cooley is also working to keep Dylan's memory alive through the Dylan's Legacy Foundation.
Dylan's Legacy, we've paired up with Missing in America Network, and we've already done some things. We brought some young men home alive. We've recovered some remains with our canine team that Dylan's Legacy has funded. I'm dealing with moms in cases across the country, and I hear their voices. I understand where they're at, and we've a lot of awareness. Jarrett Brooks out of Utah, we have been pushing on that one hard. He's a minor, and the family's just not getting any help, and it's a year tomorrow he's been missing. And so working with his family, trying to get some attention. Unfortunately, we fell into so many trolls and so much craziness in Dylan's case because you don't know what you don't know. period. That's what it boils down to. And so we're trying to be that education that these families don't get taken advantage of by these false canine teams, false YouTubers, all this stuff that actually hurts a case more than it helps it. We're just crisscrossing the country with awareness and helping others. And it's been good, and we've done a lot of good. We respect the families, and if they want us to put it out there what we've done, we do. And if they don't, we don't, and that's okay. It's all about the families, not about what we do, but what we do for them.
Years after her son's murder, Cooley has a message for those who followed the case.
Now, I just want to thank everybody for their support, those positive supporters that were out there, the people who helped us get through it, the people that have fallen in love with Dylan and supported his legacy. That's truly what it's about right now, and we appreciate it.
As part of the sentence, Brenner will spend at least 3 years in prison and faces a maximum of 30 years behind bars. So far, restitution costs in this case have yet to be determined. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.